Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Friday, the 4th of March. I'm Derek Clark. I'm joined this morning by Joshua Barrie. How are we doing, Joshua?
Oh, good, Derek. It's a lovely day in Glasgow today, Derek. Absolutely lovely. So looking forward to getting out in it later.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we look at all the Rangers news, if you're watching us on YouTube, folks, if you've not already done so, if you hit that subscribe button, you'll never miss a video when we go live. And also, if you want to take advantage of that great offer we've got on the site, Joshua and Johnny done a great explainer video about it yesterday, about what you can find on the site. Just £1 for 2 months worth of content. It really is worthwhile. Just head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe to find out all the details on that. Okay, let's talk Rangers then, Joshua. Before we look ahead to Aberdeen tomorrow, there's a couple of pieces on the website this morning. The first from yourself regarding Giovanni van Bronckhorst and the sort of the underperformance that's sort of been revealed by your good self. You've done some digging. Can you tell us a little bit about what you found?
I'm going to get it up on my other screen, Derek, so I can remember it. But base number is, we use a lot of stats at the Rangers Review, and we think it's really important to kind of understand all the elements of football. And two of the main stats we use are XG, which is expected goal. So a number of factors that come together to form whether a shot, what the likelihood is of that going into the goal. You take into account a number of factors: location, where the goalkeeper is, what the cross is like, what the pass is like, all these things. And then you have expected goal against, and that's better to use probably than shots because, Van Bronckhorst has said a few times recently 30 chances, and a shot doesn't obviously necessarily materialise into a chance. It could be a shot from 30 yards, etc., etc. So if we look at XG for last season, Rangers overperformed that a lot. And this season, their chance creation numbers, they're creating more chances per 90, more high quality chances. And in terms of the chances they're conceding, you'll remember, Derek, last season was a record-breaking defensive year. Rangers are actually conceding the same amount, same quality of chances, but they're conceding over 2 times the amount of goals that they were per 90 last season. So the interesting thing for me, Derek, and we go into a lot more detail, we look at the overperformers and the underperformers in the side, and that's quite a kind of stark, certainly surprised me how defined that was. And I'd urge people to go in and look at it, and it'll give you hopefully a really good picture of where Rangers are, why they are this season. But I don't know if you remember Steven Gerrard often talking about we were good box to box, but we didn't win both boxes. I kind of think in terms of summing this up, that's where it takes us. Rangers, in terms of what they're doing in a lot of areas of the pitch, I don't think the drop-off has been that dramatic. I think it's individual performances, and as the stats are showing, they're not overperforming on the chances that they're being given. And at the other end of the pitch, Al McGregor isn't overperforming to the same degree. So last season was a perfect season. It's a hard barometer by which to measure it. But I guess on the flip side, the stats probably give some encouragement going into the final few games of the season. It's not as if Rangers aren't creating any chances. It's not as if Rangers can't break down teams. I think it's just, as I say, the winning both boxes is the kind of key bit going into these final 9 games.
Yeah, very interesting, folks. I'd urge you all to go and check it out. As George Thompson quite kindly says, it's well worth the subscription. Remember, just £1 for 2 months worth of content. Also on there, I've got a piece on the substitution use. It sort of came to the fore, Joshua, over the course of the last 2 games, where Giovanni van Bronckhorst has made a grand total of 1 substitutions in 2 matches. No subs, of course, at McDermott Park in midweek. I've compared how he matches up against Steven Gerrard before he left it this season, and there is a drop-off of 14% in terms of the subs that he can use. Remember, he now has 5 subs to use, Van Bronckhorst, after the winter break. He's only done so once in that 5-0 win over Hearts. What do you read into that he doesn't use, makes full use of his bench as Steven Gerrard did?
It's interesting because we were speaking yesterday about how conversations with people, Feyenoord fans, were saying that perhaps he only trusted a certain number of players. Equally, you look back to his time at Feyenoord, and I think he dropped a few big players. I was watching them quite closely, just out of interest, because on Wednesday night, because the fan pressure to make subs and the shouts, and obviously Van Bronckhorst is the Rangers manager, he makes a decision. But I just thought it was interesting the way that he kind of really had the balls to do that, because if that goes wrong, Derek,
Yeah.
That is, at least if you make a couple of subs, you don't have a stick to beat yourself with. But if that went wrong, that would have been, something that would have definitely come up all week and definitely been used as a stick to beat with, as I say. I think it shows that it's not his squad. I think you've got key personnel like Kemar Roof, who incidentally is someone who really overperformed in front of goal because he's such a good finisher. And I think Rangers in some games have missed that quality of finish. Certainly in games against opposition when they're perhaps crowding the box. And you look at other players. I think the interesting thing is, for me, look back to the Aberdeen game where John Lundstrom couldn't get in the team after 6 months, and James Sands was put right in, and then you now have Sands can't get in the team. So Van Bronckhorst is evidently still working out what his team is. But to not use that squad as he did in midweek was slightly concerning, because you look at some of those players and they're really tired, and when are they going to get a rest? That's the thing. Probably not until the end of the season. So he needs to rotate for me at some point.
Yeah. Good to have Stuart Finlay along with us, new subscriber. Morning, Stuart. Good to have you. Good to have you signing up to the website. I'm sure you'll enjoy the content there. So those two pieces on the website, folks, this morning, I'd urge you to go and check it out. Okay, let's talk about one more issue that's making the news this morning, Joshua, and that is Aaron Ramsey apparently spending his own money, £30,000. It's been reported in a bid to recover from a calf injury, apparently spending it on physio appointments with his own trusted specialist that he's flown over to Scotland to provide treatment to him. He's apparently, this calf injury that he picked up was when he came on against Dortmund over there in the first leg of that Europa League tie. There's no doubt about it. It's been a frustrating signing so far. I think we all hoped that everyone would have seen Aaron Ramsey in a Rangers jersey more than what we have done. But it's clear that he's desperate to get involved, Joshua. And I think it's vital for Rangers that they get a fully fit Aaron Ramsey for this title running, which looks set to be a very close run thing.
And that's a good example of perhaps why Van Bronckhorst isn't using his bench, because no Ryan Jack, no Stephen Davis, Amad Diallo, who he brought in during the window, whatever your opinion is of him, Aaron Ramsey as well, and one more whose name escapes me, Phil Hollander. Ramsey, I think, absolutely, Derek, he wouldn't have come up to Rangers, and he could have just gone back to the Premier League if he didn't fancy it. Of course he wants to be here, of course he wants to play games. And I imagine if supporters are frustrated, I imagine that Aaron Ramsey is, as frustrated as anyone, because he wants to be out on the pitch and making the most of his time here. So I'm speaking to the manager later. We'll get an update on where he's at. To be fair to Van Bronckhorst, I think when he's spoken about it recently, he probably doesn't have an exact timeline. He probably doesn't want to say, look, he'll be in the weekend, because from the impression I get is that probably puts unnecessary pressure on players to play through injuries. So yeah, we'll see. But certainly, just on the squad in general, to have the likes of Davis back in the squad and Ramsey, just a little bit more cover will be really important, because you'd have felt really confident bringing Stephen Davis on for 15-20 minutes at the end of the game on Wednesday, wouldn't you? Whereas Sands is obviously new to the club and perhaps hasn't built up that trust yet. So fingers crossed that come, it's tomorrow actually, the Aberdeen game, isn't it?
Yeah, it's that Saturday 3 o'clock kickoff, a rarity these days.
That shows you how unused I am to Saturday 3 o'clock kickoff. We'll see who's in the team. I think Scott Arfield looks absolutely knackered, and again, that's not criticism of anything other than he gives absolutely everything when he plays, doesn't he? And he's played so much. He only made 7 pressures. I said this yesterday on Wednesday, and that is not the kind of normal Scott Arfield impact you get off the ball. For me, again, to go back to this piece, and I know I'm jumping onto the Aberdeen conversation, Derek, so forgive me, but Rangers don't have enough goal scorers in that first 11, and that for me is where why you're starting to see that underperformance. They need Roof last season made such an impact with the 14 goals, And actually, Yanis Hadji had 14 goals and assists. He contributed a lot. Won a few games. The 1-0 game against Hibs, the 1-0 game against St Johnstone. I don't think Rangers necessarily have those goals in the team. And for all Kent and Aribo's strengths, I think Aribo has 10 goals and assists and Kent has 5. That's not huge numbers. Roof and Hadji, between them last season, had 34 goals and assists. And although they weren't playing regularly, and you can have discussion about, but are they impacting the first team enough? Those numbers are really important in a lot of stuffy games, in which I think Rangers have struggled. So for me, you need Sakala in there. If you're struggling to break down a team, get Roof on quicker. Roof scored about 100 goals against Aberdeen, I feel, at Ibrox last year. So he's got a good history with them, and I think that could be really key tomorrow.
Yeah, so many comments coming in with regards to who you'd like to see start for Rangers tomorrow. We'll run through that very shortly indeed. But as we mentioned, Aberdeen come to Ibrox on Saturday afternoon. Jim Goodwin now in charge of them, of course, after the dismissal of Stephen Glass. They're having a poor season, there's no doubt about it, Aberdeen. However, we all know Rangers is their cup final, and the last time they came to Ibrox, they raced into a 2-goal lead before Rangers managed to claw it back, a 2-2 draw. Of course, there was a 1-1 draw up at Pittodrie, the first game back after the winter break. Rangers were far from their best, Joshua, and they're going to have to be much improved from Wednesday night if they're going to take 3 points in this one.
Yeah, they are, Derek, and you're in that phase, I guess, now where you wonder how much, again, to go back to that energy conversation, how much can these players give a couple of days after that game, that second half? We spoke yesterday about Rangers' last chance on Wednesday came on 64 minutes. They were really tired. Who comes into the starting 11? I don't know if it changes all that much. Van Bronckhorst has spoke about using his squad, but he's also spoke about playing his strongest squad and the player he trusts. But absolutely, I think Rangers fans will feel like they're definitely overdue a win against Aberdeen. Jim Goodwin is coming and as a good manager, but I guess will take time to imprint his own style and whatnot on that squad. But as you say, Aberdeen will always, I guess, be organised and combative when they come to Ibrox and do everything they can to win. It can't be as bad as that game earlier in the season when they raced into that 2-goal lead, as you say, and Rangers were really poor for a lot of it. But yeah, all that matters is 3 points. And to the flip side of the St Johnstone point, you look at games, Ross County, for the individual mistakes, Motherwell, what was the other draw? Dundee United, where Rangers, on the chances they created, they were better performances than other wins they've had this season. You look at the 1-0 game against Dundee earlier in the season, a terrible game of football.
Yeah.
But similar to the 1-0 win over St Johnstone, all that matters at this stage is points. And if Rangers can just, as I say, I think win both boxes, start to overperform just ever so slightly in terms of what they're keeping out, and then also just start to take chances. And for me, that means you need to have another goal scorer in that starting 11. So we'll be really intrigued to see what happens come 3 o'clock, as you say, tomorrow.
Yeah. Next comment here, Joshua, from Stuart. He said he loved you and Johnny's analysis yesterday. So kind words.
I think Stuart, I'll take that as just mine and not Johnny's. Johnny was just setting me up. So there you go. I hope he's watching.
Yeah, so many comments coming in with regards to the possible team tomorrow. Walter Zenga says Scott Arfield is 90 minutes away from a Zimmer. I sort of agree with you, Josh, and I think the majority of Rangers supporters would go along with this, that Scott Arfield has been asked to go to the well one too many times for me. I think he's in need of a rest. Whether he gets that rest tomorrow, it remains to be seen. Ideally, a 100% fit Scott Arfield, you play him against Aberdeen, but you're not getting as much output out of him as you normally would. Is there someone that you would play instead of him that sort of screams out to you? I know Fashion Sakala is a popular choice. Would you like to see the Zambian start on Saturday?
I think so. I think he's the only real option at the moment for me. And I mean, I think on the right, sometimes he can be a little bit limited in what he wants to do, but because he has such breakaway pace and he always stretches the pitch, And I know over the last few weeks, Van Bronckhorst has kind of favoured only stretching the pitch on one side, and that worked really well when you're seeing the team, especially with the balance of Ryan Jack, who I think is the real key person in this conversation, Derek, and the real key question that will need to be put to the manager: when is he back this afternoon? But I think Sakala, because he's got such pace, he can always buy that little bit of a yard from a defender. He flashes the ball across. He's not necessarily the most accurate crosser, but he almost shoots with his crosses, which can be really effective. Almost turned into a goal at Dundee United, unfortunately not on that day. And again, in that piece I've referenced earlier, which you can get if you subscribe for just £1, I've looked at some of Sakala's stats and really impressive in terms of what he's contributing to the whole team when he's on the pitch. And I guess it's that conversation. Yes, you might have some players like Sakala who are a little bit of a rough diamond, but I think with Sakala, based on when we've seen him on the pitch, whenever we've seen him on the pitch, he tends to score pretty regularly.
Yeah,
there's not been that many. He's not had a succession of games, but there's not been many kind of games or appearances where he's went by a few appearances without scoring. Roof seems to be out the picture. If he can't even get on the pitch after Morelos has played 90 minutes in 2 weeks, then it's hard to see him starting tomorrow. But again, to go back to last season, I think his overperforming in the box in terms of turning low probability chances into goals is what won a couple of games. To go back to that Hadji point as well, I think it's just these goal contributions that Rangers have been missing. And they haven't necessarily had a player to stand up and add to that. The only arrival that's added goals is Sakala. I think he has 7 in the league, which isn't a huge number. But as Rangers and Tour said, he doesn't hide. He takes the ball, and I think his addition has been a net positive. So I'd like to see him start tomorrow. I also think off the ball he gives you a lot of energy, Derek. He should have a lot of energy as well because he's not played all that much. But then aside from that, who else can you really rotate? Maybe Ryan Jack wasn't in the squad midweek to be kept fresh for today. Maybe he isn't fit for tomorrow. Maybe he isn't fit for tomorrow. We just don't know. But certainly, I think Arfield needs a rest. I think he's done brilliantly since Van Bronckhorst came in, but I think he needs a little bit of a rest to get back to his best.
Yeah, there's a couple of comments coming in, Joshua, with regards to Alex Lowry. A lot of Rangers supporters want to see him given more of a chance. I mean, he impressed when he came in the cup games. I think he's a young lad with plenty of potential, and I would have no qualms about seeing him get more game time. But I guess it's up to Giovanni Van Bronckhorst if he trusts him in these matches where he needs victories. The pressure is very much on, and does he trust the young lad to come in and do the business? I know I would, but it's easy sitting here and saying that. But would you like to see Alex Lowry given a bit more game time?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I don't know if I don't know where necessarily you play him. Probably as one of maybe the eights. I don't think Lowry's off-ball work is the same as an Arfield. But nonetheless, when he gets the ball, he started against Livingston, and I thought in a pretty dire game, he had a couple of moments that were quite impressive. I think he likes to play off the left side of him, not necessarily the left of midfield, but the left of a centre midfield more, or maybe he prefers a free role. Because you're getting to the point where you don't really have that many options. Again, with the number of injuries that we've discussed earlier, you don't have really rotation options anywhere. Where could you rotate at the moment? Balogun, again, I thought he looked pretty tired at the end of that game.
He collapsed on the deck at the end. I was a bit worried for him, so hopefully he's okay for the weekend.
But can you see that the thing is, Derek, he doesn't play 2 games in the week. So then you've got, okay, does he play tomorrow? Holander's been in and out, which doesn't suggest it's not a good sign.
No.
Do you move Calvin Bassey back then? Do you move John Lundstrom back then? Who do you play in central midfield? So the squad is really thin at the moment. Hopefully the injury update is more encouraging. I think Ryan Jack is so important to that team at the moment because they've underperformed, because the season hasn't been great. Someone who just sets the tempo, both in defence and attack, is so vital. I think he can just give the whole team a lift. So I think that the Rangers support will just be really, really hopeful that he's in the starting 11 come tomorrow.
Yeah, and spare a thought for Stuart Borland, who says that he's missing tomorrow after catching COVID And after Motherwell, Australia Gate, and now COVID, he needs a result tomorrow to cheer him up. So I very much hope that Rangers do the business, Stuart, and get a much-needed 3 points. Of course, it's the 150th anniversary celebrations tomorrow. The club are going to be wearing that unique white jersey, Joshua. Now, they don't have a good track record of wearing one-off jerseys in games. I'm not going to lie, I'm a tad nervous at this.
Yeah, they don't, do they? I actually forgot until I was speaking to someone at the game on Wednesday that it was the white kit that was being worn. I think what was the last one, the cup exit at St Mirren?
St Mirren, yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll hold our reservations, perhaps, Derek. It is a very nice kit. I think we can say that.
Oh yeah, absolutely it is. Yeah.
But yeah, I think again, 3 points the most important thing. There's been a lot of high energy performances recently. Dortmund, Hearts, Hibs. Maybe that's catching up a little bit now. Rangers just need to do the business at this stage of the season and keep the pressure on. That's all they can do.
Yeah, most definitely. Okay, folks, that'll do us there. Thanks to everyone for interacting with the show. It's very much appreciated, as always. Remember, as we've mentioned, we've got an offer on the website just now, just £1 for 2 months worth of content. You need to head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe. The offer does end soon, so you only have a few days left to take advantage of it. And if you're watching us on YouTube, so many of you are and subscribing, so thank you for that. And if you haven't already done so, if you hit that subscribe button, you'll never miss a video when we go live. Okay, that'll do us there. We'll be back again on Monday to look back on Saturday's game, but stay tuned to the Rangers Review site and our social media accounts for all the latest from Ibrox tomorrow. But until then, enjoy the rest of your